So another option too is if your puppy is having a hard time in the household, I would recommend, so again, check to make sure her needs are being met. So that might be, for example, is she getting enough rest and nap time? Again, she getting enough physical activity within her age group? Also, does she have appropriate enrichment or chew items? So a lot of puppies, even into adulthood, will continuously chew on dog items. So what I mean by that, chew items could be like a nylabone or something similar. It could be an antler, buffalo horn, all these different products that are available now. Ready, Bailey? So we may find that at times, she says, my leash is very intriguing, is you can also use your gear, ready, Bales? And sometimes have her be dragging the leash so she can get comfortable with something nearby. The benefit of sometimes getting your puppy comfortable dragging a piece of equipment like a leash is that later when you practice maybe with a longer lead and work a bit with recalls, she doesn't get overwhelmed feeling the leash dragging or touching her body as she's practicing. So Bailey, come. Yes. So if she gets a little distracted right there, she smelt something somewhat intriguing, I'm going to go to her, get her attention, and then bring her into my space and feed her for that. So if sometimes your puppy is non-responsive, don't view it as them, again, not wanting to listen, but them saying, I'm having a hard time. So if she doesn't quite know what to do, we may have to show her and then give her some help that way. So for that loose leash walking we were just warming up with earlier, if let's say your puppy was very mouthy and jumping for you or jumping for the leash, I would say she's most likely needing a rest period or something to alleviate her mouth that would be appropriate to chew on. Remember that puppies, as I was mentioning a few moments ago, they will be going through their teething phase now, but also around 9 months, give or take a few weeks or months, depending on the breed. They will go through a second teething phase when their big incisors in the back of their jaw are starting to poke through. So since we've bred dogs to stay puppy-like forever, they do tend to chew for the rest of their lives. So this is where, when it comes to our beauties, we want to make sure that we're setting them up for success with things that we would like them to chew on instead. So again, we're not scolding or getting rid of normal dog behavior, but we're now implementing it onto something that would be appropriate for us in society, but also that would be appropriate for them to gnaw on so they themselves don't get into trouble from us. So again, remember, if your babe is failing, it could be that we need to set her up for success by managing the environment or making sure that her only option for practice is the behavior or the skill that you would really like her to master. So ready, Bales? So again, she's targeting my hand. As she gets more fluid, it would be less of the hand, obviously down low, more towards your side, and eventually just natural walking gait for us with intermittent feeding. So right now the food is, again, helping her create value around this lovely skill, which is, again, loose leash walking. If she was especially mouthy and she was going for your hands and you know that all her other needs have been met, she could just be overwhelmed or overexcited. So if in that situation's happening, I do recommend to go into sometimes what I call as the breadcrumb trail. So this is where instead of feeding your puppy directly to their mouth, you feed them by the side of your leg on the floor. So the benefit of feeding the floor is as my puppy is meandering with me, it can bring them back to your side if they got a little distracted, if they tend to scan the environment and want to get involved with everything they see, from leaves to plants to inanimate objects or other puppies or distractions. Practice the breadcrumb trail with no distractions and then use that at times when there's minimal distractions and build up. So I always tell my students, try to create a situation where you can write out everything that your puppy does amazing with. So your green zone is where they're successful. They're taking food. The behaviors or skills that you're working on come out instantly with no issues. Yellow would be where your puppy is struggling slightly. They're not as responsive. Maybe they're having a hard time honing in because the environment is getting too challenging or they're becoming overwhelmed or overtired. Ready, Beals? So we may find for her that yellow can sometimes vary from day to day, which is fine, but we want to stay away from the red zone. So what I mean by that, almost view it like your set of lights. Green is safe to go through, yellow, be careful, and of course, red, stop and don't go any further. So with your puppy, same thing, is if we're running into a lot of red where she's non-responsive, she doesn't know the cue, she's having a hard time honing in, then I would say that your puppy is also then no longer learning. So if they're always kind of going from really easy green environment or green skill set to going right to red where they're failing or having a hard time, then remember your puppy might start to learn that those behaviors might be what you like because they happen often. So when you're practicing, I would highly recommend try to think about keeping her mostly in the green to yellow at times, and avoid for right now the red where she might be having a much harder time focusing, functioning, and also learning. So because if they're not taking food, if they're not responding to cues, that's your puppy saying, I'm way past my comfort range or way past my understanding, and whatever you might be working on is out the window, or it turns into a negative association where now your puppy just gets bombarded, and now being bombarded equals that the world could be spooky, or that thing across the way might be the then later for down the road, a trigger down the road. So I would highly recommend to make sure that when you're practicing, it seems easy for both you and the puppy. So this is a really nice job with Miss B working that lovely loose leash walk-in. And again, you'll see that I sometimes feed multiple snacks for a skill, like her hanging out and doing a lovely little sit and sometimes checking in on me. I want to capture those moments where my puppy is being amazing. Remember too, this could be easily earned through some of her kibble. So right now I am using her little kibble portion mixed with some of her training treats and a teeny bit of also cheese, which tends to be the higher value snack. Ready? Bales. Yes. So right there, just a little name recognition. Great job. And we'll give her a little break. That was awesome, Bailey. Good girl. Nice work. She's like, my leash looks delicious.